They laughed at my wedding gift. They mocked my job. They told my wife she married beneath her name and made her cry in her own kitchen. I stayed quiet. I smiled. I let them believe they'd won. But quiet men remember everything, and I was already building the fire that would burn their whole world down. My name is Daniel, and for a long time I thought being patient meant being weak. I married Priya 2 years ago in a small backyard ceremony with string lights and half the chairs borrowed from a neighbor. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. I remember looking at her that night and thinking, this is it. This is the version of my life I actually want. What I didn't expect was her parents. Harold and Margaret weren't the kind of people who yelled. No, they were worse. They smiled while they cut you. The first time I met them, Harold shook my hand a little too firm, looked me up and down and said, "So, Priya tells us you're still figuring out your career path." Not a question, a judgment wrapped in politeness. Margaret was worse in her own quiet way. She'd compliment your shirt and somehow make it sound like an insult. "That's a bold choice for a family dinner," she said once, and I remember just nodding, smiling, because that's what you do, right? You keep the peace. For months, I told myself it didn't matter. Let them think what they want. I know who I am. I know what I'm building. But it wasn't me I was worried about. It was Priya. I'll never forget the night of her birthday dinner. Her parents had this way of making everything about themselves, even her own celebration. Harold stood up, glass in hand, and instead of a toast, he gave this speech about making better choices, about settling. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. I looked over at Priya. She was still smiling, but her hand was gripping the edge of the table so tight her knuckles went white. That's the moment I remember most. Not the words, her hand. Later that night, in the car, she didn't cry right away. She just stared out the window. Then, quietly, "I'm sorry. I don't know why they're like this with you." I told her it was fine. I told her I could handle it. But something in me shifted that night, because I realized this wasn't about me being disrespected. It was about them slowly convincing my wife that she'd made a mistake, that she deserved better than what she chose. And that I wasn't going to let stand. Not yet, not loudly, but I wasn't going to forget it either. Months passed, and the little cuts didn't stop. They multiplied. It started becoming a pattern. Every family dinner, every holiday, somebody always had a comment ready. Blake, Priya's brother, picked up right where his parents left off. He'd crack jokes about my car, my job, my 5-year plan, always laughing like it was harmless. Nobody else laughed with him, but nobody stopped him either. I kept telling myself, just get through tonight, just get through this one. Then came the dinner I still think about. We were at Harold and Margaret's house, sitting around that long dining table Margaret was always so proud of. Somehow, the conversation turned to my late father. I don't even remember how. And Margaret, calm as ever, glass of wine in hand, said, "Well, some people just don't come from families that know how to build anything." She said it so lightly, like it was nothing. The table went quiet. I looked at Priya. Her face had gone pale, and under the table I felt her hand find mine, shaking. We left 20 minutes later, barely said goodbye. In the car, she broke, really broke. "I can't keep doing this, Daniel. I can't keep watching them treat you like this." I didn't say anything for a while. I just gripped the steering wheel and stared at the road ahead. That night, something in me went quiet. Not defeated, just done. Done reacting, done explaining myself to people who'd already made up their minds. What Priya didn't know, what nobody knew, was that for the last 4 months, I'd been working on something. Late nights, extra hours, a conversation with my mentor, Mr. Castellano, that had turned into an opportunity I hadn't told anyone about yet. They thought I was just surviving. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was preparing. The betrayal I didn't see coming came from a phone call. I found out by accident. Priya's sister, Renee, mentioned it like it was nothing. "Oh, did Dad get through to your boss? He said he wanted to put in a good word." My stomach dropped. Harold hadn't asked me. He hadn't asked Priya. He'd gone around us both, straight to my workplace, planting doubt about me disguised as concern. I confronted him on Sunday dinner, calm at first. "Why would you call my job, Harold?" He didn't even flinch. "I was just making sure my daughter's future was secure." That word, secure, like I was a risk to be managed. Blake laughed from across the table. That laugh set something off in me I hadn't felt before. I stood up, voice sharper than I meant it to be. "You don't get to decide what's secure for her. She already chose." Margaret scoffed. "Chose what exactly?" Then it happened. Blake shoved me back, half joking, half testing. And Priya stood up between us, shaking, and said the words I never thought I'd hear her say to her own parents. "If you don't respect him, you don't respect me." The room went silent. For the first time, they didn't have a comeback. For 2 weeks after that dinner, nobody called. No apology, no acknowledgement, just silence, the kind that feels heavier than shouting ever could. But I wasn't thinking about their silence anymore. I was thinking about what I'd been building. See, 4 months earlier, Mr. Castellano, my mentor, the closest thing I had to a father since mine passed, pulled me aside after a project review. "You've got something most people don't," he told me. "You don't need to be loud to be dangerous." He offered me a position leading a new division, one tied to an investment group quietly acquiring stakes in mid-size regional firms. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. I didn't know, not at first, how close that opportunity would come to my own family's front door. It was Renee who let it slip, again without meaning to. Dad's been stressed, something about the business needing new investors or, I don't know, restructuring. My chest tightened. I asked her the name of the firm reviewing Harold's company. It was mine. Not officially mine, but mine to advise on, mine to influence. Harold's business, the one he used to measure his worth, the one he used to look down on my unstable career, was now sitting on a list of companies that needed serious financial rescue, and the people deciding its fate now included me. I remember sitting with that information for a full day before saying anything, not out of cruelty, out of disbelief. Priya noticed something was different that night. "You've been quiet," she said. I told her everything, watched her face shift from shock to something else, something quieter, almost like relief. They spent 2 years exclaiming, telling me I wasn't enough. Now they need me to survive. I wasn't planning revenge. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't plotting how to destroy them. But I also wasn't going to pretend I didn't know. And when Harold finally called me directly, voice tight, formal, asking to discuss the company's situation, I felt something settle in me. Not satisfaction exactly, just balance. For once, they needed something from me, and for once, I wasn't going to make it easy. Harold asked to meet in person, not at his house, at mine. He sat across from me at my own kitchen table, the one Margaret once called a bold choice for a family dinner. Funny how things turn. "I need you to speak to the board," he said. "No small talk, no pretense left. Put in a good word, for Priya's sake. I looked at him for a long moment. Like you did for me at my job? His jaw tightened. He didn't answer. I told him the truth, calm and even. I'm not going to sabotage you, Harold. That's not who I am. But I'm also not going to pretend the last 2 years didn't happen. Margaret showed up uninvited 20 minutes later, already in tears, already rehearsed. We just want what's best for our daughter. Priya, standing beside me, finally said what she'd been holding in for years. You wanted control, Mom, not what's best for me. The room went silent. Margaret's tears stopped being performance and became real. For the first time, they weren't looking down at us. They were looking up, waiting to see if we'd catch them or let them fall. I didn't let them fall, but I didn't pull them up either, not right away. I told the board the truth, the financials, the risks, the numbers as they were. No favors, no sabotage, just honesty, something Harold had never given me. The restructuring happened. Harold kept his company, but smaller, humbler, stripped of the image he'd built his whole identity around. Months passed. Priya and I moved to a new place, further from her parents, closer to the life we actually wanted. My work with Mr. Castellano grew, quietly, steadily, the kind of success that doesn't need an announcement. Margaret reached out first, a text, then a call. I'd like to understand you better, she said. No excuses this time. I told her I was open to that, but slowly, on our terms. One evening, Priya sat across from me, the same table where Harold once demanded my help. You never told me how you really felt, Priya, she said. All those years, you just stayed quiet. I took her hand. I wasn't staying quiet, Priya. I was paying attention, waiting for the right moment. Not to hurt them, just to stop letting them hurt you. She smiled, tears in her eyes, but different tears this time, steady ones. They thought silence meant surrender. It never did. Looking back now, I don't feel angry anymore. I feel steady, because the truth is, karma doesn't need shouting. It doesn't need revenge plots or slammed doors. Sometimes it just needs patience and time. Harold and Margaret learned that respect isn't something you demand, it's something you earn, quietly, the same way I earned my place in Priya's life. If this story hits something in you, if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or told you weren't enough, hit like right now. Comment below and tell me, would you have done the same thing I did? And if you want more stories like this one, stories about quiet strength and real karma, hit subscribe, because the best revenge is simply becoming undeniable.